Do you think you could be happy if you were me? Let me tell you what's been going on. So a year ago, my husband of 40 years passed away from complications from Alzheimer's. I've been on a cancer journey for the last 10 years that requires me to go in for checkups every 90 days, which are kind of stressful. And now my daughter, my son-in-law, and two of my three precious grandchildren have decided to move from 8 minutes away from me to 4 hours. So I'm really struggling a bit. So I feel a bit like I'm in one of those troughs instead of up on the high part of the wave of happiness. And I care about that. But what I honestly care about more is what's happening in the ocean underneath. That's where I like to not just be happy, but have a sense of tranquility, peacefulness, and satisfaction, because that's what helps me weather the troughs in the ocean of life. For me, that ocean is the ocean of God, the ocean of spirit, the ocean of all there is from the source, that creative ultimate power. And that is the ocean in which I'm privileged to get to dip and dive and swim and have my being. So let's talk for just a moment about some of the hallmarks of happiness. This is something I've come back to recently to kind of improve my frame of mind. A book I rely on a lot for showing me the hallmarks of happiness is one written by Dr. Kelly Turner, and it's called Radical Remission. She wrote a second book, which I also love, called Radical Hope. So in both books, she includes the importance of deepening your spiritual connection. This is the first and maybe the most important hallmark of happiness in my life, maybe in yours as well. So there are so many ways to deepen our spiritual connection. Of course, one is the important practice of meditation. We do a lot of that here at Mile High Church. 10 years ago, I was what's called a 2-minute meditator. I'm not a whole lot better now, but I do meditate quite often. The thing that I supplement my meditation with is a practice that has just 3 parts, and we can do it together now. It helps me achieve that same meditative state, and yet I can do it anywhere, anytime of the day. So the first thing that we do is inhale, and we take that inhalation up to our crown chakra, our third eye, wherever you like to send it. But inhale and exhale. I think exhaling with sound makes it more potent and powerful. Then the second part of it is the shoulder part. On the inhale, I lift my shoulders. On the exhale, I release them. So we go in again. And we let it all go. Anything that is unlike happiness. Then the third part is the belly breathing. So on the inhale, your belly goes in. On the exhale, it goes out. Let's put all 3 together. Inhale up. Shoulders up. Now shoulders down and belly relaxed. That is one of my pillars of happiness. I used to set my watch for 6 times a day to do that. Now I do it on an as-needed basis. So, love that one. The second pillar of happiness I'm going to tell you about comes from the work of Dr. Laurie Santos at Yale. She created a happiness course in 2018. It quickly gained in popularity, and to date, about 1/3 people have taken her course on happiness, either online or in person. And so what Dr. Santos identifies as an important hallmark of happiness is to get social. Now, a lot of people under stress tend to isolate, and in her enormous body of social science research, she's found that is really not that helpful. Even if you're an introvert, it helps to be around people, even if they're strangers. So getting social is something that supports us and allows us the opportunity to support others. For me, This looks like once a month going to Thirsty Thursday in my neighborhood with all of my gal pals. It's a place where we get together and gossip. I mean, go over important things that are happening in our lives. So just a really important friend group for me. Another important hallmark of happiness is living with gratitude. Now, we did this last night in our healing support group, and it's amazing what people are grateful for. It's usually the simplest things. So some of them that came up last night were the first cup of coffee of the day, taking a warm shower, living in Colorado, having fresh air, having family and friends, falling asleep at night, all of those kinds of things. And what, again, Dr. Laurie Santos has found in her research at Yale is that if you keep a gratitude journal and you just write 5 things a day in it for a period of just 14 days, your happiness goes up 10%, and it continues to go up. So the practice of gratitude is really important. The other thing that it's been found that gratitude does is lower cortisol. That's our stress hormone. And that's the one that inflames our bodies on the insides of our arteries. All kinds of deleterious effects come with inflation. So that's another way that gratitude is incredibly helpful. They've also studied healthcare providers, especially after the age of COVID, and keeping a gratitude journal for them increased their happiness and lowered their amounts of depression and anxiety. So gratitude journal, very simple thing to do. You might want to try it. Okay, the fourth thing that Dr. Santos really, really highlights is getting 8 hours of sleep every night. Easily said. For some people, it turns out this is very difficult to do. Her research indicates that we should use our sleeping spaces for sleeping, not as a cinema, not as a lounge, not as a place we watch TV, but simply as a place to sleep. That tells our body when we go in there, we're going to get hopefully 8 hours of great sleep. Dr. Santos goes as far as to say this is the bedrock foundation hallmark of happiness on which all the others are based. And it makes sense. If you wake up and you're grumpy, how else are you going to embrace the hallmarks of happiness? So the way this looks for me is that I go to bed and I read something that's printed on paper. And I find that just reading on paper puts me to sleep in 5 or 10 minutes. And her research backs that up. We've got to turn off all our devices and not have our sleeping spaces also be a media space. This next one I don't think will surprise anyone, but it's to get moving. I like to get moving and get social at the same time, so I walk with friends a lot. My street's about a mile long, and so we can just do laps on it. And I find that helps in so many ways just to get moving. And what the research shows is that if you move for just 30 minutes a day, and who can't find 30 minutes? We're all busy, but 30 minutes isn't that much. That increases all of your important hormonal secretions for 12 hours. So 30 minutes gets you 12 hours of happiness. The hormones I'm talking about in this case are dopamine, relaxin, serotonin, oxytocin, and the natural endorphins that are produced in our bodies when we're moving. So we are creatures made to move, and it just helps our whole sense of well-being and mental wellness when we do move. And then last and certainly not least is to be kind. There are 2 kinds of compassion involved in this. One is the self-compassion that we can be showing ourselves. The literature indicates that talking to ourselves like we would talk to a dear friend is the way to approach things, to really shut down the inner critic and just go instead with talking to ourselves like we would a good friend. So being kind to yourself and to others is really important. The Dalai Lama put it this way: if you want others to be happy, practice compassion. If you want to be happy, practice compassion. I hope these hallmarks of happiness are helpful to you.
So, continuing in the consciousness of oneness, I know that there is one God. The God that is within me is the God within all. It is in all circumstances. It is in all situations. It's not in all people. We can't see that God. We can't hold and touch that God. It is formless and shapeless and timeless. But we know that it exists because we can see the end results of its work. And we can experience the end results of its work. I know that that God, that wisdom from that God, emanates in, around, and through me as an individual, is in, around, and through my body. And as I say this for myself, I say this for everyone participating. I know that each of us has within us a divine healer, that every cell in our bodies is vibrating with the energy of the divine, that every system and function and organ radiates health, wholeness, and well-being. And I know now for anyone who is experiencing anything out of the norm in their physical being, that the wisdom that is inherent within the body knows how to remedy this situation. I trust this and I know this to be true. So whatever ought to be retained is retained, and whatever ought to be released is released, as we celebrate the vibrancy of life together. So with gratitude, I release these words into the feminine energy of mind, the fertile soil, the creative medium. And I know that they are done. And so it is. Amen.